Okay, today we are joined by Savannah Berry, coming off third place finish at the LA Marathon. Finished third in the women's race, top American finisher in the women's race as well, finishing in 2:30. She is a former Utah Valley University All Western Athletic Conference first team in the 10,000, 5,000, 3,000, 2014 graduate of Highland High School. We are joined by Savannah Berry. Savannah, how are you doing today? Congratulations first off on the marathon. How are you feeling today?
I'm feeling pretty good. I just got back to running this week, so I always am excited for that because it's nice to have a little bit of time off, but when you're doing something you love, then it's nice to get back to it as soon as possible.
So in those situations, how much time do you allow yourself off after a marathon like that?
Usually I try to take at least a week of like doing nothing and sleeping in and just like totally getting my head out of the normal mindset of like training and competing.
So leading up to the LA Marathon, did you have any goals in mind? I mean, what was in your head? Where did you want to finish?
So my goal was just to put out a race result, I guess, that I was happy with. For the most part, I would love to have PR'd, but I knew the course was going to be a little bit challenging. So for me, it was getting as close to my PR as possible on like a hillier course. I had a, little desire in me to hopefully win the whole thing just because it's a local marathon and I haven't done one that I felt like it was almost like, a home experience, a home court type situation. I've done CIM, but that one is more of one that I've like watched growing up as a child. So I had a little desire to win, but finishing top three, I was super happy just to be on the podium.
When you're in the middle of a race, at what point are you thinking, when you're in that first group, at what point are you thinking, okay, I can go for this? I potentially am in a place where I can win this. Like, when do you kind of like, is that something going in before the race, or does the race come to you and then that gets into your head as you're going?
A little bit of both. I feel like you kind of go through like patterns of going back and forth. Like you feel really confident in yourself. And then you have like, even in the race, for example, you have a mile where you're feeling a little bit in a rougher spot just because naturally the marathon is never like easy breezy the whole way, where you start to be like, well, can I do it type thing. So it kind of goes back and forth. I feel like I get little like surges of confidence and I can do it type thing. And then randomly at mile 20, maybe I'm like, wait a second, am I in over my head a little? Um, so I don't know. I feel like throughout the race and before the race, I had little thoughts of that. But it's never consistent. It's always kind of just random spurts of believing in yourself, I guess, to an extent, and having that confidence and trying to ride those highs when you are in that position rather than feeding into the lows of, I don't know how I'm actually feeling.
You talked about wanting to PR. Were you still happy with your finish?
Yeah, I was still really happy with it. It's hard to kind of in your head, I guess, create that like you always want to get a better time, but the courses and the conditions are always going to be different on any given day. So it's more so feeling like you got maybe the best out of you. And I think on that day I did. And I think I did like put forth a personal best in that regard. But time wise, obviously, it's not on paper a PB, but I think mentally and the way I ran the race, it was a PB for me, I guess, if that makes sense.
So looking at that, do you look back and think, I could have done something different. I left a little time out there. Maybe if I did this, maybe if I did that. Do you start going back and kind of going over the race in your head and thinking, okay, what could I have done differently? Maybe next time.
Oh, for sure. I feel like always coming off a race, you do that a little bit, like the what if game. Part of me looking back was like, what if I had maybe stayed back and let other people control the pace a little bit? But I almost feel like it's kind of a dangerous spot to get into because if you play too much of the what ifs, it comes more of like a regretful or remorseful type thing rather than you should be happy that you just finished and that you had a good day and things like that. So I try not to live in that field too much.
So you talk about just giving yourself a little time off. My guess is that, as you said, when you do something you love, you're not going to give yourself that much time off. Do you allow yourself after a big race like that to take a week off, take 2 weeks off, or do you need to just kind of keep moving?
Yeah, I usually like I said, I usually force myself to take a total week off, mental break from everything, nothing to do with running. But then getting back into it even when I do start again, like this week, It's not like how I was training before. It's definitely like easier miles, just enjoying it, meeting up with friends, like still trying to take off some of the pressures of like high intensity training and things like that, and also letting my body recover before I'm starting to do anything too hard on myself.
So, you're done with LA. What is next for you? What's the big race that you are getting ready for?
So I'm still kind of looking at potential fall marathons, but then in between there, I'll kind of like sprinkle in some shorter races. I do know that they have like the 25K and the 20K road championships coming up for the US. And then there's a lot of fun races out there, halves and fulls and 5Ks and 10Ks and things like that that I can do to kind of sprinkle in between the fall marathon. So I don't necessarily have one set in stone yet. I'm still kind of working with my coach and my agent to kind of decide what's the best move.
So, coming off of the LA Marathon, let's look ahead, big picture here. 2028 happens to be in LA. You are originally from Bakersfield, not too far away. Is 2028 the Olympics? Is that something that you're looking at?
Yeah, and that's definitely part of the reason why I did LA this year. I knew that again, like time wise, it wasn't necessarily going to be a super fast course. It's not a bad course or anything like that, but it's got some hills. So my thought was maybe getting a little early exposure before they release any type of time standard to qualify for the 2028 to the LA course and how it might be if they end up having it there would be good for me. And then in the long term, kind of give me an idea of what to expect going into it.
Is that something, you know, as a distance runner, you always want to compete against the best. You want to test yourself. Is that something that you've thought about, not necessarily just 2028, but just for a while now, wanting to compete in the games?
Yeah, I have a little bit of a sore spot from the fact that I've actually never won a marathon before, but that is primarily because I actually do really enjoy just like kind of seeking out those races where I can compete and like challenge myself and hopefully get pushed by a field that's going to, elicit some sort of untapped potential or a faster time that, I didn't believe was possible. And that comes with, you might not win the race ever, but that's okay because sometimes like just the challenge is more fun than, the success of winning a marathon or something.
So speaking of marathons, here locally, we have the Bakersfield Marathon coming up this Sunday. We have, thousands of runners competing out here, going out there. For me personally, I'm running the half marathon. It's my first ever run. I've never run long distance in my life. And so this is something that's new and challenging for me. What are your thoughts, your advice just to runners out there running in a race like this?
Honestly, what helps me the most is usually just like soaking in the crowd and the experience. Like, no matter what, you're going to expect to feel like some sort of pain, some sort of like tiredness, fatigue, things like that in the race. But if you can kind of absorb yourself in the experience, it really detracts from that. And it kind of shifts your mindset into thinking about all of the positive and all of the, I guess, fun and enjoyableness of the race itself rather than focusing on how tired you are or how much you're ready to be done. So that's kind of my mindset going into it.
So I'm curious too. I just want to pick your brain a little bit here. In the middle of a race, like what is going through your mind? What are you, for me, I've never run distance before, and there are often times where my head is like, just finish, just get done. I can feel the pain, and I'm just hurting, and I'm like, okay, let's just get done. Let's go get back home and lay out on the floor for a while. But like for you, when you're running, what is going through your mind? What keeps you going as you're racing?
Yeah, so there's several things and it kind of depends on the circumstance. So a lot of times halfway through, I'm like evaluating a little bit how I'm feeling, how my body's feeling. And then I'll go through kind of certain mental games to kind of keep myself in it. So there's like the one of like, yes, like looking out for family members to kind of pretend that you're feeling really good for their sake so they don't think you're suffering. And then the two of like, if you look back and reflect on all of the training you've done that's been hard and things like that, like this is supposed to be your moment to actually enjoy and relish in all of that hard work. So, kind of putting that into perspective helps a little bit too. And then, if nothing of that works, then a lot of times I'm thinking, okay, what am I going to eat after the race? What am I going to have? Because you've just ran a half, so you can pretty much justify whatever indulgence you would like and so sometimes like thinking about that gets my brain out of thinking of running and how hard it is in that moment, but instead of like, oh, okay, but I have this amazing thing waiting for me at the finish line.
What are some of those amazing things? What do you like to eat after a race? What do
It
you
really, oh, go ahead, sorry.
no, what do you indulge in after a race?
So it really does depend on my mood. So sometimes I get done with the race and I'm like, nothing sweet sounds good after taking in gels and things like that. So it's like the saltiest thing possible. It's like fries or chips or whatever it is. Other times it is like ice cream is probably my favorite dessert to go for, or frozen yogurt. So one of those two things, but it really depends on the mood and then kind of my family too, because a lot of times they're traveling with me, so we're kind of judging what is everyone feeling in the moment. But a lot of times we'll go to like some sort of pizza or tacos or something like that.
What is your once you cross the finish line, what goes through your mind? Like it's got to be all kinds of emotions and just kind of the joy of finishing and just the accomplishment. Uh, Talk me through what you go through mentally after you cross that finish line.
Yeah, a lot of times after I cross the finish line, there's a little bit of a relief. Not so much to just be done, but just to be like, hopefully it was a good race or something like that, just to have gotten the result that I wanted out of it, I guess, for the most part. So a lot of times it's going through a sense of relief and being able to kind of look back and enjoy like little moments of the race and share that with those who were there out there on the course, like cheering you on and things like that. So most of the time I'm thinking of my family and like, I don't know, I guess a little bit of hopefully celebration with them. But that's kind of what I think about after.
Finally, give me, for all the runners out here running the Bakersfield Marathon, give me just send a message to everybody out here running.
Yeah, so I mean, hopefully there's a lot of local people there, but also maybe some people coming from all around the area. Um, Kind of the best thing about running a half or a full is like there's never a better way to explore a city than to run a half or a full. You have so much time out there. You get to see the community, you get to see the people, you get to see the businesses, all of that. And so just enjoy like I guess the moment and get to know a city that maybe you thought you knew your whole life growing up, but you'll find new things out there in on the race course that day.
Awesome, Savannah. I know you are busy and I appreciate you taking a few moments to join us here. So, again, thank you very much for your time. Wish you all the best of luck moving forward.
Thank you. Good luck tomorrow. I've actually ran the half, so it's a fun one.